Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised. Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Never before in the history of sports podcasts have two men brought you opinion and analysis like these two. They speak for a city that's desperate for wins and titles, not whining and travesty. You might not agree with what they have to say, but you'll defend their right to say it. Sports fans across the world, from Chicago, Illinois, this is the Mac and Reed Show.
Hello and welcome into another edition of the Mac and Reed Show right here on the Barroom Network. We are back after a little summer hiatus. I, of course, am Evan Mack, and virtually across from me is Ross Reed. Follow me at The Real Evan Mack on X. That sounds fucking weird. I'm not doing that. And follow Ross at Ross Reed. And don't forget to follow all of the Barroom Network's great programming and keep up with our news and updates at Barroom Network on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and we are streaming live on YouTube, of course. And I look like I'm in one of those documentaries where they muffle my voice and then they hide my identity. And the lighting's very weird in my new office setup here in Palos Heights. How's it going, Ross? What's happening?
I hope all is well. My mic, we're trying to get that situated. You look like you're on X right now, like as you're in the dark.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. We have a lot to get to as we've missed a ton of things. Of course, you know, in the doldrums of summer, we get to enjoy ourselves through most of July and came back just in time for training camp. So we'll dive into all the Bears news and Chicago's number one tight end getting a big extension, other storylines like number one, Justin Fields, also still making NFL headlines. Of course, there's some quarterbacks still getting the bag and running backs not getting the bag in NFL headline news. We'll talk about quarterback on Netflix as I've enjoyed that thus far. Just started that. NBA offseason has been nuts, and we will dive into that as far as the biggest moves that stuck out. And then, of course, Barbie versus Oppenheimer. I'll get Ross's thoughts on that. And we'll sprinkle a little 50th anniversary of hip-hop notes as well as we talk about the summer of music. But how was July for you, Ross? Everything great with the summer?
July's been great. It's a good summer, as you know. With when you have kids, you're trying to find the balance of keeping them active and engaged, keeping your own sanity, keeping everybody from having some crazy heat stroke. And I think my kid is probably on his 27th cut or bruise so far from the summer. So we're doing great. We got a whole month left here as we head into the dog days of August next week. But I can promise you this: I am ready for 65 degrees and like football on Saturdays and Sundays again. I'm ready. I'm done with summer.
He's already
summer
over.
Might be done with me.
and it just began in like mid-June, right. And so now we get this full week of 90-degree heat. I'll raise your 27 bruises to one fractured tibia, and so poor Lily's in a cast. My 18-month-old, so she's pissed. And why wouldn't you be, after all? But let's dive into it. We have a lot to discuss and talking Bears training camp news. So today, shaking the rust off, if you will. And so, all the, of course, journalists and those close to training camp and the fans too, went to check out, the Bears and first impressions as far as that goes. But even before we get to that, we know that now the Bears and tight end Cole Kmet have agreed to a 4-year, $50 million extension. That's $32.8 million guaranteed. And that seems like a no-brainer for the Bears when He's a local product. He's very young. He's shown his potential. He's got good hands. He can block. He's athletic. He's one of those prototype tight ends where I think he has a lot of upside. Robert Tonyan will challenge him and take pressure off him at times too. But, in the era of the George Kittles and the Travis Kelce's, you want a guy like Cole Kmet who can be sort of a security blanket for Justin Fields. You figure between him and DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney, that's a pretty great trio. And you throw in Chase Claypool, he's got great options there. And I know, Ross, you took to Twitter and you were saying you're just trying to get some work done, and you see that, of course, people are already, shitting on the extension, and it's just very divisive, as it usually is this early on when we haven't seen a ton of production from Cole Kmet. But what were your thoughts when he got the extension today?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been a stark Cole Kmet hater at the beginning of his career, and mostly because it wasn't him on the guy, but I thought that he was a microcosm of a lot of Ryan Pace's mistakes, which was kind of overdrafting certain guys, overdrafting at certain positions, and leaving quality football players on the board. I was a big Antoine Winfield Jr. fan at the time, who subsequently went to the Tampa Bay Bucks. It was a big reason why they won the Super Bowl that year with Tom Brady. He was awesome on that defense. Ironically enough, I was also a big Chase Claypool fan at the time. And now he's on the Bears as well. And that doesn't really seem to be working out as well as the Cole Kmet situation. So, right, you win some, you lose some. But, I have since over the last couple of years come around on Cole Kmet. And I think the best thing that you can say about him is he might not be Mr. Right, but he certainly is Mr. Right now. And I think in this league, especially at the tight end position, which I think is very top heavy. You got the guys like Mark Andrews and George Kittle and Travis Kelce, right, and Dallas Goedert and guys like that. And then it kind of falls off a cliff. And there are a lot of guys in this league, even a guy like Kyle Pitts, who was drafted top 10 overall and should be as dynamic a weapon as possible. You really can't seem to get the football last year. A lot of that, it was because their quarterback position was very shaky, as we've seen, and as the aforementioned quarterback, Marcus Mariota really struggles on that TV show. But, Cole Kmet, when he's open, he's pretty reliable. He makes a catch. I would like to see him use his size and strength more to get open. It'll be really interesting to see him this year with other better weapons around him. And I certainly want to see him more of a red zone target, and getting more touchdowns. I think that's where Robert Tonyan potentially has a little bit of an edge. But I say all that to say, I certainly don't mind the contract. I'm okay with it. I don't think it's big money. It's not breaking the bank for the Bears. They certainly have a ton of money. They still need to spend more money just to get to the floor for this year. I think they still, because a lot of Cole Kmet's money doesn't come into the future. I think they still have to spend like another $20 million just to even get to the floor this year. So expect a couple more signings for their own team, and also expect a veteran pass rusher. We'll talk about that in a minute, I'm sure. So I'm okay with it. Cole Kmet stays healthy. I think it's going to be really interesting, though, this year to see what his production looks like, because he was really the guy last year as Darnell Mooney got hurt and Chase Claypool got hurt, and a couple of guys, and just had a really bad wide receiving core. Now enter DJ Moore, who we saw today. He all over social media, made an amazing over the shoulder touchdown catch from Justin Fields. Enter DJ Moore is going to eat up a lot of targets. Enter a healthy Darnell Mooney is going to eat up a lot of targets. Chase Claypool is going to be hungry. He wants a contract. He's going to eat up targets. Robert Tonyan is, like I said, an awesome red zone candidate. And they got running backs now, they're three-headed monsters. So I think it'll be interesting to see where his stats line up going forward compared to like last year and the year before. But I'm okay with it. He's a reliable guy. He should be able to eat more in the middle of the field and catch more touchdowns. If he does that, I'm fine with the deal.
So now he makes him a top 10 paid tight end in the NFL. He's coming off a 50-catch, 544-yard season with 7 touchdowns, locked in for the future. He's 24 years old. Kmet said, quote, "It's just amazing. This whole thing from the beginning has been a dream come true. Just being drafted here first and being able to get an extension done, agree to terms on that is amazing. Looking forward to it and looking forward to the things that come with it and many playoff appearances and Super Bowls to come," end quote. And that was all, before practice started today. That's basically when he found out. It's good for him, and it certainly makes sense. But as we talk about the roster going into training camp right now, that's trying to make the 53-man spot, that his spot is safe. That the weapons you mentioned are certainly safe. Maybe if something, God forbid, happens to Chase Claypool, I think was sitting out for various minor injury related things. But now it's like you said. The story of camp is going to be largely with the offense, I feel like, and how there's just a ton of weapons, and whether the ones that Justin Fields has built chemistry with before, the ones that he's going to build chemistry with, enter, of course, DJ Moore, and it's exciting, right? And the running backs have taken a good turn where you sign some guys who to help out spell Khalil Herbert. And get this offense going and try to get Justin Fields and this offense into that top tier, which, they couldn't put a lot of points up last year. So what are your expectations for that offense? I know you mentioned, obviously DJ Moore will be huge, and you could just start there for sure. But, in training camp, what do you look forward to the most out of the offensive reps? Certainly the offensive line, but is there something else that you're looking forward to, Ross?
Yeah, I think for the early on, for Justin Fields specifically, he's now entering his third year of the league, but this is also his second year in the same offense. I'd imagine that Luke Getsy and him were in a lot of communication in the offseason, trying to get him more comfortable, install some things that he could be more comfortable with now that he knows the terminology, things of that nature. He worked his ass off all offseason, looks fantastic. I think I saw him with his shirt off every single day this year.
Yeah, you did.
So for me, it's just consistency, and it's like not making the little mistakes that you could see early on with a guy, starting an offense for the first time. The false starts, the fumbling of the snaps, the guys not getting guys lined up correctly, play clock, things of that nature. And you heard Matt Eberflus today say, "Listen, I was actually really impressed with where the offense was. There were little to no mistakes out there." And that is exactly what I want to hear on day one. And as you continue to stack days throughout training camp, you want to expand that towards that ball's coming out of Justin's hands quick and decisive and on the money. He knows where he wants to go with that football. And then from there, he wants to move on past his first read, if it's not there, to his second, to his third option, because that's going to be a big part of Justin's game this year. He said he wants to throw for 4,000 yards. And I think he can do it. But you can't throw for 4,000 yards when your first read's not there. You drop your eyes and you try and take off and start running. And I don't think he's going to last 17 games if he does that. And he certainly is not going to up those passing yards. I want him to be able to move through his progressions and move on to the fact that, I feel comfortable having Cole Kmet out there with DJ Moore, with Chase Claypool, with Darnell Mooney, with Robert Tonyan, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's where we want to see the maturation throughout training camp, preseason, and into week one against the Packers.
I mean, again, like I touched on, the passing yards were 32nd in the league last year. You averaged 130 a game. And now you look at, of course, the rushing yards. When you're outpacing the passing yards with rushing yards, something's off. Like, it's great to see. We'll talk more about Justin Fields in a minute. It's great to see those big chunk plays and big touchdown plays that he has, but that's not sustainable. And that's not really going to win you football games, as we saw last year. We've talked about Justin Fields as a quarterback, and his arm is going to really, I think, make or break his progression up into that upper echelon of those guys getting the bag like a Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, even the guys who haven't, had a ton of success yet. But, in training camp, I'm very curious, obviously, with how, you look at the offensive line and how that's absolutely retooled from last year. And you look left to right, you're looking at Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins. Tevin Jenkins, it's a big year for him, and Braxton Jones as well. Cody Whitehair is going to be an anchor. Nate Davis, the free agent signing. And then Darnell Wright, the rookie, who's just a mauler. So it's exciting to think about the progress they could make, and then the chemistry they'll build in the trenches, not only paving running lanes for Justin Fields and Khalil Herbert and company, but obviously pass protection is going to be huge for Justin Fields. If he has time, then and he had to make so many plays last year because he was running for his life. That's also why you were 32nd in the league in passing yards. But I'm excited to see that take the next step too, and as far as that cohesive unit in the offensive line.
Completely agree, and that's why it's really important, key, that you got all 5 guys healthy heading into training camp right now. I like what they did with the offensive line in the offseason. I think they went from a bottom 3rd unit to at least the start of training camp. Right now, they're middle of the road, and I think your 2 bookend tackles could elevate you to potentially, close to top 10 territory in that regard. Obviously, we know about Darnell Wright, rookie from Tennessee. He's got one of the highest strength ratings right now on Madden as a rookie. And so people are going to anticipate that he's going to be just stonewalling guys on the right side. I think the Bears are going to run the football a lot behind him because he's got also the athleticism to get out onto the edge and take on linebackers and safeties. But I think the biggest guy is that you wanted to key on this year is Braxton Jones, because he was a rookie last year. He had his ups and downs. He mentioned it, but he's got the want to be one of the best left tackles in the league. He's got to really show that he's got the strength and power to stand stout against some of the league's best pass rushers, and give Justin the confidence to stay in the pocket and sit there and make those throws. Because if Justin doesn't trust you and have the confidence, then that's where we're failing. But I also think it's a big year for Braxton Jones because for him being a starter this year, he was only a 5th-round pick. And remember, the Bears have 2 first-round picks this year, in 2024 they got their own, and then they have the Carolina Panthers. And so you theoretically could replace Braxton Jones in the draft if you felt like he's not a good enough left tackle for the next 7 to 10 years. That's something to keep an eye on there. So I think it's a big year for him. I love the interior part of the line. I think as long as Cody Whitehair stays healthy, you know what you're going to get from him. He's a veteran. He's been in the trenches for a long time. He's seen everything. He's done everything. I think he's a stable force. Nate Jones is another solid veteran. And, the hot take, Tevin Jenkins might be a Pro Bowl player as long as he can stay on the field all 17 games or close to it this year.
Last year, absolutely.
Yeah, he might be able to be a Pro Bowl player at left guard. I think he's going to be an awesome fit right there. And he brings another nastiest, and he helps Braxton Jones on that left side really solidify things.
Yeah, we're talking Bears here on the Mac and Reed Show. And Rick Ruder, we've been off for a while. Nobody knows that we're back. And we have a podcast-heavy audience, of course. But welcome in, Rick. And feel free to chime in on the comments and subscribe, tell a friend or two. But, we touched on the offense at length. And I think that you hit it on the head with the interior part of it, too. I really likened it to with the really competitive Bears teams of old, where it's Olin Kreutz and Roberto Garza and guys who really just anchored a very good running and pass, well, not so much passing game, but good running game, and guys who could just be really physical and get in your face and compete with some tougher pass rushes, especially in the NFC North when you look at Detroit and Vikings, who are going to set the pace for the rest of this division. But Ross, you mentioned it. Is there any hope as far as the defense goes? They're set at linebacker. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting to see how the secondary performs. But as a Bears fan and as someone looking from the outside, as far as this pass rush and how bad it was last year and how they couldn't sniff the quarterback, it probably last in the league in sacks. I don't have it in front of me. Mm. Do you think that there's still a chance that, they sign a vet pass rusher at this point? What would be the likelihood for you?
Yeah, I think it's highly likely that you'll see one here within the next 5 to 7 days. I think Ryan Poles is doing his due diligence right now, but I think he's trying to do 2 things. Number one, he doesn't want to overpay for a guy or tie a guy into a long-term deal. When I say long-term deal, I mean past 1 year. So the name that's been brought up a lot frequently is Yannick Ngakoue, right? Ngakoue is started his career in Jacksonville, was a Pro Bowl player, and then from there he just bounced around for 5 different teams in 3 separate years, and he's still without a job right now. And what a lot of people are saying is he theoretically wants to come to the Bears, could come to the Bears, but he wants more than a 1-year deal. I always say if a guy is bounced around like that early on in his career and being at such a young age, there's a reason why he's bounced around like that. And it's probably not for positive things. And the Bears probably don't want to give him a more than 1 year deal at the moment because they don't feel comfortable with that. And I don't blame Ryan Poles for doing that, especially when you still have out there, got Jadeveon Clowney out there if you want to kick those tires. Melvin Ingram's still out there. He gets hurt a lot. And then the other name we've heard a lot lately is the veteran Justin Houston. But listen, Justin Houston, even he's going into his mid-30s right now, still would have been the team leader by a long shot in sacks last year for the Bears. Also, he played in the Matt Eberflus defense for the Colts. He's very familiar with the terminology. He could show up to the Bears tomorrow and step right in and be an instant upgrade. And you could probably get him on a 1 year deal given his age and whatnot. So I think Poles would like to have Ngakoue, but he'll probably settle for Houston. But there's no rush in doing that right now. The market is still going to let it come to them. He's not going to overpay in the market. And like I talked about, potentially, going after left tackle next year, I would put heavy money that pass rusher is going to be addressed in the first round in 2024. So I don't think Ryan Poles is in no rush or doesn't want to give out 2 or 3 years to on the deal right now to guys when he knows that he's going to get his own blue chip guy in 2024. He wants a true stopgap for this year and somebody that's going to help these interior linemen that he has, these 2 rookies that he drafted. But also he still knows he has DeMarcus Walker that he signed, Rasheem Green that he signed, and Travis Gibson, who's a carryover that can also rotate in.
Yeah, it's an important thing to remember with people crying, where's the signing for an edge rusher, is that the interior is bolstered still from this most recent draft by Ryan Poles, right? When you enter Zach Pickens and Javon Dexter, I think that will certainly help, take pressure off Travis Gibson, who had his moments, and DeMarcus Walker, who could still make an impact. And now, is it going to be the best defensive line in the league? No, by any stretch. And will it compare to the 49ers or even the Lions in your division? No, it's a building process. And now this is big. The offense, looks like that unit where we might not see some changeover for a while, maybe a couple of the 11 guys that go out there, right? That should be building a lot of chemistry going forward, hopefully. And then the defensive line is sort of last piece of the puzzle as far as the defense is concerned, because you locked up Tremaine Edmonds, who will be huge at middle linebacker. We think that he's an answer for losing Roquan Smith. And then, Eddie Jackson talks about turning this team around and the whole outlook of the team from being bottom feeders of the league to being competitive again and going back to playoff games and hopefully a Super Bowl at some point in the future. But it's you got to preach patience. You don't know what you're going to find. There's always some gems, especially in training camp right now too, of guys who might have been slept on later round picks. But I certainly do hope we see Dexter and Pickens, guys like that, younger guys, step up a bit and make the cut and be sort of focal points of that defensive line going forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And and kind of to Rick's point here in the comments, it's also a collective. Pass rush can get creative and defenses can get creative, and this is now also Matt Eberflus in his second year with this system. And he's got Alan Williams, his defensive coordinator, who's also, he's not a rookie defensive coordinator anymore. You can get a little bit more creative with calling different blitzes and schemes and gap pressure and things of that nature. We know a guy like Tremaine Edmonds coming from Buffalo is really good around the line of scrimmage, and you can send him on a few blitzes. TJ Edwards is also is really good in that situation as well. They drafted Noah Sewell, who's going to play a lot of special teams, but he can also be on the field and on passing downs and blitzing downs, stuff like that. Jack Sanborn is still on this team. So you're going to have to get really creative with your front seven and even a guy like Jaquan Brisker and Eddie Jackson to attack the quarterback and give them different looks. They've got, they're very young up front. They got a lot of young guys, Zach Pickens and Javon Dexter and Travis Bell and Jalen Harris and, Sewell and DeAnthony Jones and all this stuff like that. but these are young bodies who are very capable of getting to the quarterback. There's going to be a lot of just, sacks by committee and pressure by committee. And hopefully somebody can step up and really emerge as a pass rusher. But I still think that they sign somebody within the next few days here, get them in the camp. I also think a lot of these older guys, especially if you're a guy like Justin Houston and you've been through 9-10 training camps, the last thing you want to do is show up in Lake Forest, Illinois, and it's 95 degrees outside and it thunderstormed and hailed today and you got 2-a-days, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to show up right around preseason game 2 or 3, ease his way in, and then pin his ears back on week 1 against Jordan Love and go get his ass.
Yeah. Training camp or not, he'll be ready. He's been through it. He's a vet. There's a reason for all of that. Let's circle back to Justin Fields, who, as we talked about in practice today, Adam Hogue on Twitter, I posted it earlier, said he had a strong first day. And you mentioned that deep ball to DJ Moore for a touchdown. And we would love to see that sort of progression from Justin and show off that cannon of an arm he's got. And, in that best NFL players, the 100 list that comes out every year that NFL Network does, Justin Fields ranked 86th overall. And that's that poll. It's voted on by all the NFL players. And it's so cool to see their reactions. Like you see Nick Bosa and his praise for Justin Fields, Roquan Smith, his former teammate, all these defensive and offensive players just talk about the potential that a guy like Justin Fields has. And when talking about their peers, and this is, and all these lists are pretty subjective, but you figure he was unranked last year and he could easily climb up into that top 50 if he is the guy we think he is, if he can be in that conversation with a Mahomes and a Jalen Hurts and a Lamar Jackson, and he's, one step closer to having those type of huge contracts that those guys have as well. Do you think he's appropriately ranked, Ross?
I think these lists are very subjective, and I have to obviously tell everybody, and we know this already, that a lot of it is, it all comes from the players, and a lot of it is a popularity contest. I think if you listen to the players and you listen to the players during the ranking and what they've said from Justin and stuff like that, they know that he was tossed into an absolutely abysmal situation last year. Offensive line sucked. Wide receivers sucked. He was throwing to UPS guys. He had FedEx drivers, no disrespect to any of those people, blocking for him. And yet somehow he found a way to make plays, and he found a way to put guys like Fred Warner on roller skates, and the Buffalo Bills, who went deep into the playoffs, and the Philadelphia Eagles, who set records last year on defense. And those guys were absolutely baffled by him as well. And I think that starts that. Players take notice of that, and they say, listen, this kid's got real talent. And if you surround him with talent, we think that he can be a really good football player. And so I know there's a lot of talk about him versus Trevor Lawrence, and there's going to be talk about those two guys for a very, very long time because they've been in the same draft class with each other, about why Lawrence was ranked lower than him. I think Lawrence just had a lot around him last year compared to what Justin was. And so, I think the players see the trajectory that Justin's on, and they think that he's going to be the very next year he could be in the 50s or 40s in that ranking or something like that, but they have a ton of respect for him. And so if the players are on board and the players are saying that he is a top 100 player, and they see him on the field and they saw that speed up close and personal, and they know this kid, and they know also, most importantly, what he played with last year or lack thereof, then I'm okay with it, and I'm on board with it. And how can I be the one to go against what those guys are saying?
You just look at these lists too, at top 100 overall players, and you consider, say if there's obviously a 53-man roster, multiply that by 32 teams, it's a little under 1,700 players to go through. And then you think about the guys that step into the roles as well. Like that's, the next up was, I just looked at the list, was Laramie Tunsil, I think, over him, and Justin Fields. So it's all over the place. But what I'll say about Justin Fields and what his peers have talked about, and what you just talked about, Ross, is his ability to really play well against the best defenses out there. That was so impressive last year to see him. You just saw the clips in that particular highlight reel where they talked about him being number 86. And the Eagles were in the Super Bowl as, arguably that best defense in the league. And he made them look silly a lot of plays. And they were in that game for sure. Same with the 49ers, one of the best defenses in the league. Played toe-to-toe with them. And albeit he had to play to his strength, which was running the ball. And that can be a bad crutch to have. You want to be more on the Mahomes side of things where you threaten to run and then are able, and Hurts as well, and are able to throw it and play action or make a play outside of the pocket on the run. So I hope to see more of that. But there's no doubt about it that this is all upside, and I would put big money on him being higher next year because now you've upgraded his weapons around him. You've upgraded the protection and the coaching. It's something to do with that chemistry too with Coach Flus going forward as well, right? So the future is bright for Justin Fields, no question about that. Any other notes on our boy Justin Fields and training camp as we get going, rolling in Lake Forest here?
No, I would just say, obviously, physically, he looks great. The young man's an Adonis. I wish I looked like him physically. He's got cool hair even, and but also most importantly, he just looks so calm and poised on the microphone throughout all of the offseason. He looks very comfortable in his position as year 3 quarterback. He looks comfortable being the star in the face of the Chicago Bears. Even the stuff that he was doing in the offseason with the kids and things of that nature. I mean, he brought in, 1,500 kids from underprivileged areas to his camp and stuff like that. Those are the kind of things that you just want to see as a person and as a leader of the team. And so I'm really excited for him this year. I'm excited for his trajectory. I think Bears fans should be excited. I'll be at training camp on August 8th. I'm taking my son to family day on August 6th at Soldier Field. And there's just a little bit of a buzz, as there always is at the start of training camp. But I think there's more of a buzz with Justin right now because we all feel like we could be on the precipice of something special. And let's be honest, I'm 41, you're in your 30s. We've got fans from their 20s to their 70s. We've never seen it before. We've never actually seen in this fan base a quarterback that we can truly say that's a star. We've seen almost, right? The Cutlers of the world, even Trubisky had a moment there. Even Eric Kramer had a moment and things of that nature, Steve Walsh. But we've never actually seen a true Jim McMahon. Shout out to Jim McMahon. But we've never seen a true bona fide star in a Chicago Bears jersey. And it feels like we might have one on the way. And that's really damn cool to see it in the making.
No question. You talked about his character at length and as we'll be talking about that series quarterback coming up too in our NFL segment and on this show and Mac and Reed, he said he got approached to do it and declined. And some guys just don't need that distraction, just want to focus on what they have in front of them and think that they're not at that point. Maybe he changes his mind at some point soon, but it's going to be exciting to see how training camp shapes out here.
It is. And I don't think he has that kind of personality. He seems a very confident young man and very confident in his personality and his abilities. But he also seems like a very quiet, humble young man. We don't know who he's dating, per se, or we don't see him out on the town or anything like that. He seems like he just wants to do his job and go home. And you got to respect that and appreciate that. And, I'm sure he's seen the show and he's seen, all 3 quarterbacks on there and he knows all 3 of those guys very well. But like you said, he probably just wants to focus on football. And then when it's time to kind of turn it off, so to speak, and relax, because you need that mental break from any job that you have, let alone being the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. You don't want to have to do that with a constant camera in your living room or in your bathroom or something like that. And we will talk about quarterback in a minute. And they are getting up close and personal in these guys' lives. And not everybody wants that all the time. I certainly wouldn't want it either. So I don't blame him at all.
They got all access. They're video. They're taking video of you everywhere. You have no privacy, I feel like, to that extent. Ron asked, how did the running backs look today during camp? And we talked about Khalil Herbert and Dante Foreman and Rashawn Johnson and sort of expectations, and Travis Homer, not to mention there. Rashawn is kind of, this depth chart could change for sure as it goes on. Did you have any that is exactly what I thought, Cliff, as far as a camera in the bathroom. You just got no privacy there.
No privacy.
They shit just like us, Cliff, except they've
It's
probably got really nice bidets, I guess. But did you have any running back impressions or really look into that at all?
Not at all. You know what I always say, because
too soon, I feel like.
When you don't have the pads on, everybody looks great. In particular, the running backs and on the offensive line and defensive line. We did talk about the offensive line a little bit earlier, Caesar. We talked about how good it is for them all to be healthy, and we like the continuity on the offensive line. We thought it was going to be big years for both bookend tackles, and they could take them from a middle of the pack as a unit offensive line to a potential top 10 unit. But I am excited to see the running backs when they get going. In particular, we're excited to talk about Khalil Herbert. We know he's got the juice, which is his nickname. We know he can run with the football and he can catch football and do some dynamic things, but can this young man pass block? And can he do the simple things that it takes to be on the field for the majority of snaps if you want to be starting running back in this league? Because if not, I can promise you this, Dante Foreman, every single place that he's gone in his career, has been able to overtake running backs and really good running backs. He did it last year again. Obviously, when Christian McCaffrey was shipped out to San Francisco, Deontay Foreman won a lot of people some fantasy football games in some fantasy football leagues because he was damn good. He's a very good, smart, savvy veteran. And Roschon Johnson he's a sleeper pick this year as a guy that can really do some damage. So I love their running back room. I love those three guys. We'll see when the pads go on how they all look. Same thing with the offensive line. Same thing with the defensive line as well. So for now, it's just making sure that the mental mistakes are not there for these guys, that they clean up, they get some continuity, they break a sweat. Most importantly, they stay healthy.
Stay healthy, and that's a big key. When you talk about Dante Foreman too, and the potential you have if he and Khalil Herbert stay healthy, that would be an insane 1-2 punch, because we know it's a running back by committee type of league out there today.
I get so conflicted because I want Justin to put the ball in the air, close to 500 times this year, and I want him to throw for over 4,000 yards. But you look at Tevin Jenkins up front, you look at Darnell Wright up front, and Nate Davis, you look at that running back group, and you add Justin Fields to that mix, there's no reason why the Bears can't lead the league in rushing. There's no reason why. I don't know who in this league is going to be able to consistently stop them from getting well over 100 yards every single game this year, if not, 150, 175, close to 200 yards every single year. They could be that dynamic this year running the football. But we are in 2023. We've moved past the 3 yards of the cloud of dust. We also want them to put the ball in the air this year. So hopefully there's going to be a proper balance on both sides.
Put it in the air. Cliff saying Bears wide receiver and running back rooms are the best in years, and wide receiver room may be the best ever. That would be something coming off, a room that had Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall, and that was the best of my recent memory, I would think. But yeah, we shall see, man. It's just begun, and let's talk about the rest of the NFL. And even before some other headlines, as far as the running backs not getting the bag, that's just pretty incredible. But Justin Herbert had a huge contract on the heels of Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson getting paid, making now $262 million, and that begs the question: how much is Joe Burrow going to get in this next phase of big contracts going out there? You figure it'll be something similar. And when Herbert hasn't really, we know the potential of Justin Herbert, but man, you gotta have big ups for his agent there.
You do. And, you also look at, there's a big factor involved with Justin Herbert, which is, the Chargers, since getting to LA, they are the redheaded stepchild to the Los Angeles Rams, in a city that already doesn't really care that much about football, right? If you go to LA is a Lakers-Dodgers town all day. They kind of care about football. They mostly want to go for the drinks and for celebrities, and the stadium is beautiful. But if the team isn't good or they don't have a star behind them, they really don't care that much. And I think the Chargers are battling for real estate in SoFi Stadium and also in the city of LA. And they know in order for them to get there, it's going to be on the back of Justin Herbert, especially as Matthew Stafford is heading into a major decline right now. He's had a lot of concussions last year. Matthew Stafford is about 1 to 2 years out the door. Sean McVay might be leaving that situation soon enough as well. And so this is now Justin Herbert's city to shine, and it's an investment into him. Also saying, hopefully you can carry us in that new city. They got a brand new head coach there, and we know after the whole debacle last year, blowing the lead to Jacksonville. But Herbert is super talented. A lot of teams whipped on him. A lot of teams could have had him a lot earlier than when the Chargers had him, right? You think about that Miami situation, they're all in on Tua, but think about what Justin Herbert could have been with those weapons right now in Miami, and Mike McDaniel calling the plays. They could be a legit, top 2 Super Bowl contender. So Justin Herbert is fun. Joe Burrow, for my money, is the best quarterback in the league, not named Patrick Mahomes. And so I do think obviously he's going to break the bank, but I think Joe Burrow, also really cares about the team that's around him. And I know he thinks that he's probably a lot closer to a Super Bowl ring than Justin Herbert is. And he doesn't want to lose guys like Jamar Chase and Boyd and the other receivers that they have and other players on that team. He might take a little bit of a pay cut in order to keep those guys in the mix, knowing that, his main focus right now, he's still going to get paid. He's still going to get a lot of money. But this guy also wants to beat Patrick Mahomes, and that's going to be, it's turning into the most fun rivalry right now in football. To me, it's not Josh Allen versus Pat Mahomes. To me, it's Joe Burrow versus Pat Mahomes, and I expect another big year from Burrow, and I wouldn't be surprised if they knocked off the Chiefs this year.
We've teased it at length on the note of all this quarterback talk, and it's as they said in that first episode, it's great. It's great concept. If you have not seen it yet, go do yourself a favor and watch at least the first episode. I'm about 3 episodes in of Quarterback on Netflix, and it's well worth your time. As far as Netflix, I don't really put them up with HBO or some other networks as far as sports docs being their thing, but this was something that Peyton Manning executive produced and talked about in the first episode. And for his money, there's no tougher position in sports than quarterback, and it's insane to see with all this unprecedented access we have now to mic these guys up and to see every minute of every day of training in the offseason that they go through to prepare for an NFL season. It's hard to argue against him, right? And so they featured Kirk Cousins and Marcus Mariota and, of course, Super Bowl champion Patrick Mahomes, and lucked out big time with a nice home run with Patrick Mahomes, whose legend grows every year, of course. Like Kirk Cousins, and it's interesting to see the different tiers, right? Where Kirk Cousins is pretty good, but he's a journeyman as far as going from Washington, like proved himself there as a backup and then stepped up when RG3 got hurt, and then going to get a good contract with Minnesota. He's always close to the playoffs and had some great success with the Vikings. It is Justin Jefferson and a good offense around him, but not that close. And then Marcus Mariota just terrible season last season, right? Just on a terrible football team too. So you see all 3 different spectrums of that, but the Patrick Mahomes stuff is incredible to me, just to see his discipline, his approach to the game. The baseball background is wild, and how that, I'm sure it was interesting to you as a former personal trainer, Ross, just to see that aspect of it, of his trainer talking about he has his speed from his spine and everything is in his spine. I'm like, yeah, I never thought about that, but he's doing all these different throws from different angles, the flip, or if he's throwing across his body, and it's so true. And that's why he's able to make these just jaw-dropping plays for the Chiefs and will his team to a Super Bowl. It's really incredible. And I'm curious to see, obviously I know how it ends, so to speak, but it's very cool to see again, the different angles of a guy like Mariota, who had won a Heisman, and Kirk Cousins, who had good success earlier on in his football career, but in the pros, just how cutthroat it is. And every year it's just tougher and tougher. And these hits that these guys take, it's a blast. And have you been following it, Ross?
I've been following it. It's been awesome. A couple things stick out to me. Number one, you talk about the difference between the 3 quarterbacks, and you can tell Pat Mahomes was just groomed for this basically from the start of his early life. I mean, obviously his father was a pro athlete. And so I think when you have a parent that's a pro athlete, you get used to growing up in locker rooms and cameras being around and famous people being around, and you start getting very comfortable with that very early on. He's basically unflappable. And I think also with him, you talked about the baseball background, his spine. He's a very pliable young man. What I mean by that is he's easily adjustable. He has talent, multifaceted talent. And that's because nobody forced him to do one thing early on, right? Nobody forced him. You're like, hey, your dad's a pro pitcher. You're only going to pitch in your life. Or, he started picking up football more as he got later on, and he started, loving that sport more. And he said, when I walked out in the football field, he's like, how can I not love this more than playing baseball? And I think the biggest thing is the confidence. And I think that comes from the fact that he grew up with all that such early on. He has such high level of confidence heading into high school, and heading into college, and heading into the NFL. You just don't see that with Kirk Cousins. It's kind of there with him. But even Kirk Cousins, wasn't really, highly touted coming out of high school, right? And, going into Michigan State, was kind of a mid-level guy. And then he gets to the NFL. He's drafted the same year as RG3 was drafted with Washington, right? And that kind of knocks him down a little bit. And then Marcus Mariota, who was a high draft pick, but he just doesn't have that confidence and that, charisma that exudes, I'm a starting star quarterback in this league. And you can kind of see it. He's soft-spoken. He feels like he's just not, he knows he's good at the game, and he kind of loves the game, but sometimes he doesn't love the game. We see that as you progress through the season. I don't want to spoil anything, but the guy, he uses football. He used football as a way to save his family. And you know what? That's okay. And I don't begrudge him for that at all. He's got a beautiful wife and beautiful child now. He was able to, feed the rest of his family for the rest of their life. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from all three of them out of this is regardless of which guy you are, they're both highly successful. And I think that we take that away from pro athletes and guys in pro sports. If you are Marcus Mariota, you're top 2%. You made it. You made it to the NFL. You were playing in NFL games. You started NFL games. Not everybody can say that. And there are a lot of talented guys in this league or that have come around and played sports that we say that have not made it as far. So he's still a success story. Obviously, he's not Pat Mahomes, but he's still made it as well. And he should be commended for that. I think people are saying he sucks. He's not. He's in the NFL. He doesn't suck. He doesn't suck. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're on your sofa. He doesn't suck. He's doing. he's still a really good football player. He's just not Pat Mahomes, obviously. But I think it's really fun to see. I'd be curious to see what they do for the next three quarterbacks. Because obviously the Manning network is going to renew this. I would like to see them go more towards the super under the radar journeyman guys. Like the Bears have Nathan Peterman, right? Or PJ Walker. I
was thinking at least a second stringer or a clipboard should be featured.
Yeah, you want to see some of these guys that that are very smart and know the game, but they just don't quite have the talent. But how do they keep grinding it out every single day to make the $750,000 or whatever it takes to keep their family afloat and stay in this game? What keeps driving these guys? I know Pat Mahomes is great. I don't need to see a reality show to tell me Pat Mahomes is great.
I'm definitely had enough of him now. Yeah.
Right. I want to see some of the guys more under the radar, or I want to see some of the rookies out there. I would love to see a guy like Malik Willis, who really, really struggled last year as a rookie quarterback. And how is he going to bounce back this year? And now he has to look over his shoulder. Well, probably Will Levis is looking over his shoulder, but there's a guy there now that is already a rookie taking his spot. And how does he respond to that? Those are I want to see more adversity in these shows and a little less of Pat Mahomes, even though I love Pat Mahomes and love watching him on TV in that dynamic.
And he's just such a great character, right?
Right.
I'm glad they didn't.
Great personality.
Glad they didn't feature his brother as much. And had enough of his wife too, of course, by the end of it.
Yeah.
And your note about Mariota, it's funny too. With you saw Cam Newton this past week get into it with a heckling fan, and with Marcus Mariota, it's the same thing that Cam Newton said to this fan. Like, we have the same amount of rings, but our bank account's very different.
That's right.
So you can sit the fuck down. And with Cousins, Cliff posed that good question, looking at the division in Minnesota, how long will Minnesota roll with Cousins? And, watching, it's cool to see that. And Kirk Cousins is a family guy, and he's just very Christian. He's got, all these chains on, and he's he's very funny, and can, you know, make fun of himself, but also a great leader. He's again has those things that Mariota lacks. I feel like that we talked about where he can command a huddle a bit more than Mariota. And he has this memory room and that's hidden away in his Michigan home for him to cry in. I feel like for all these playoff losses. But you know, with the Vikings, it brought me back how they were 7-1 at one point last year.
Yeah.
And what a fall from grace at that point. I mean, that just proves you got to play all 17 games at this point in the season. But the Vikings, you know, between them and Detroit being favored to win the NFC North, I got a feeling it's going to be maybe the most competitive division in football, right up there with. I know that Cliff also pointed out that the AFC, you know, South is looking really good right now, or AFC West, I should say, with the Chiefs and Chargers and all them. But yeah, with Kirk Cousins, what do you make of him? Is he just always going to be this guy who gets too close, or do you have any confidence in him? He certainly has the best wide receiver in football, so you got to say something in that regard.
He does. He puts up good stats every year. He's a good stats guy, but he's kind of like my Cole Kmet analogy that I made at the start of the show. He's not Mr. Right, but he's certainly Mr. Right now, and so he's the guy until a better guy shows up. Right? He's kind of like if you ever watched The Matrix, he's got a little Morpheus in him. You know, Morpheus was good, and Morpheus could do some things, but when Neo showed up is when we all knew, you know, who was the one, so to speak. And I think in Minnesota right now, they know that Kirk Cousins can get you to a certain place, but he really can't get you to the promised land. And you know, eventually they are going to have to make a decision on him because he's not getting any younger. He's certainly not trying to get any more broke. Even though his wardrobe suggests otherwise. Kirk, side note, you can pay me $250 a year to be your stylist. I got you. I promise you.
His outfits that are picked by his wife.
It's so bad. It's so bad. Shame on him. Shame on her for putting that man in those outfits. He makes way too much money to dress like that. But I digress. But yeah, but I mean, and you know what? Even if Minnesota moves on from him, you know, after this year, which is, you know, very, very well could happen. He's 34 years old right now. Somebody else is going to pick him up. Somebody else will pick him up. And you look at a guy like Kyle Shanahan out in San Francisco, who's like, I can get any dude to run my offense. He would be all over a guy like Kirk Cousins if for some reason Brock Purdy doesn't pan out this year or gets hurt again. So Kirk Cousins is always going to have a job in this league. He's going to make a lot of money. I just don't think he can get you, you know, to the promised land. He's very, you know, very, very, very Jeff George-ish in that regard.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm just not convinced on his journey that he can get you there, man. At this point, I would like to see, you know, looking ahead to this quarterback season 2, if you will. Maybe you throw Joe Burrow in there, throw a, you know, journeyman like a guy who was like a Chase Daniel who'd been around the league for so long. There's still someone like Chase around there, and then, you know, throw maybe a Lamar Jackson or someone on the outside looking at. And don't give me Jared Goff or any of those.
Lamar would be fun. You got to get I would like a really good quarterback. Like Geno Smith would be a fun story.
It'd be great. Yeah.
He's a guy. He's a redemption story. He's a guy who was drafted pretty high, flamed out. He got punched in the face by a teammate. Then he goes to Seattle, and everybody leaves him for dead there, replacing Russell Wilson. And poof, he shows up as a Pro Bowl quarterback and gets a good extension. And so he would be a fun guy to watch around as well. I'm trying to think who else. I'm agreeing with you. I'm all in on the backup quarterback, the third string guy who just is like grinding to make a living every day. Show me like a PJ Walker type, who also would be fun because he would be on the Bears every year, so you might get a little bit of Justin Fields, you know, glimmering in the background there.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett, guys like that. Very interesting.
Yeah.
The sun. This office is facing, the windows are due west with the sun going down right now. So Aldo said it looked like I'm the astronaut in 2001: Space Odyssey.
Yeah. Shout out Stanley Kubrick. Great film movie.
Kubrick. I was just I don't know what it was on Twitter that came across, but it's Kubrick's best movies. I think it was his birthday or something like that. And yeah, he's got a ton of hits. That's for sure.
He does.
As we end the show here, finishing up quickly, Ross, the NBA offseason has been nuts. But, you know, of these moves like Chris Paul to the Warriors, Bradley Beal to the Suns, Galen Brown getting the Supermax, just stupid money from Boston. What's the biggest move to you, or did you think any move outside of those three were the biggest in your eyes?
Jokic is still in Denver, right?
He is.
That's the biggest
Big
move
fact.
of the offseason. As long as Jokic is still in Denver, that would be the biggest move of the offseason. No, in all seriousness, no. I do like what Boston did. I think they needed more firepower on offense, especially when those games get really tight. So I like subbing out Marcus Smart for Kristaps Porzingis, because I do think that he's going to be able to stretch the floor for them. In those situations, it's the reason why they lost to Miami. They didn't have enough firepower, especially when Jason Tatum got hurt and he wasn't able to overcome that. So I like what Boston did. I think it's risky, obviously, because Porzingis has had a high level of injuries in his career, but I like it. And you start looking around the league. I'm not a big fan of the Phoenix thing. I think as much as I love Bradley Beal, I think that's there's not enough basketball to go around for that situation. They don't really have they don't have a primary ball handler anymore. And they have three guys now on the roster who struggle to stay healthy. Bradley Beal's has injury issues. Kevin Durant's not getting any younger. He had injury issues as well. Same as Devin Booker. So I anticipate in the West, I don't know who's going to beat Denver and Jokic right now. I think he's about the Jokic Sans is about to really start. And we're about to see some special things from that guy over the next couple of years.
What about the Bulls? You like Io being re-signed for $21 million for 3 years? That seems
I'm fine with it. Yeah, I'm fine with it. They made some solid moves. They made some solid under the radar moves. And unfortunately, I just don't think that they have enough firepower to compete in the Eastern Conference. But they'll be a fringe 8 through 10 seed again, and that's enough to keep Jerry Reinsdorf happy and keep the United Center filled for another season.
I mean, the United Center sells out regardless, right, of the product that goes out there for whatever reason. It's not Detroit. It's just
speaking of United Center, obviously, rest in peace to Rocky Wirtz, owner of the Chicago Blackhawks, who helped get them out of whatever hellhole they were into relevancy and winning their Stanley Cups run, but also some trouble situations, as we all know, with the Blackhawks underneath his watch over the last couple of years as well. So his story comes with a lot of success, but is also pretty tainted as well as he passes away. And crazy thing is, he got like the LeBron James of hockey in Connor Bedard, and he didn't get to see him play one game in a Blackhawks jersey, which is just nuts to me.
Oh, for sure. Well, you figure you had all that success, and then you figure they would be in an NHL hell again for a while. But now you get Bedard with that first overall pick, who's the next chosen one on the heels of Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane. Like, that's the building blocks are there, and I both of us don't know as much as the next Spar Room Network show that has a lot more hockey coverage, but we know that this kid is good, and one guy can really turn around a franchise like that and can certainly improve going forward. Wrapping up the 50th anniversary of Hip Hop Ross this year. We talked about it briefly, like around the Grammys time. That's how long I feel like it's been that we've talked to it. That long, but we, that featured a lot of great names, past and present, and performances in the future of hip hop. And, Travis Scott's coming out with an album. What's really cool is I was actually seeing, I was watching the Tiny Desk concerts. I don't know if you watched those from NPR. They're phenomenal. And two of the best ones I've ever seen, Cypress Hill and Juvenile. Like, damn, those just crushed it, man. And Be Real, who's, hosting reality shows and shit now, is incredible. And Juvenile, who just living in New Orleans doing his damn thing and hanging out with Manny Fresh, like they both just really brought the energy, and I would love to see them live, like just seeing that in a huge, or just like a medium-sized theater setting. They were great. Worth the watch on Tiny Desk concert on YouTube if you check that out.
Brought out Trombone Shorty, who's another New Orleans legend, to perform with them. That was awesome. Speaking of 50 years of hip hop and one of the greatest of all times, Nas dropped another project last week. That's like his 5th project in the last 3 years. He had another album with Hit Boy. He's got 50 Cent on the album. I love the project. Nas just keeps churning them out. He's consistently being in top 5 of my favorite rappers of all time, and we can see why. The guy's got close to 15 albums at this point in his career. It just doesn't seem like he's slowing down at any point.
Cliff showing his age, saying he picked up Billie Eilish's second album. What do you mean you picked it up? You copped it at at the Barnes and Noble or wherever you buy CDs? No, I'm just kidding. We love you, Cliff. But yeah, Nas continues to just churn out great music. You think of those rappers that have that longevity, and Nas is right up there, right? We haven't seen a Jay-Z project in a while. But between that pairing of Hit Boy and Nas has been so good. King's Disease, that series is phenomenal. All right, we've talked about it at length, Ross, or we teased it at the beginning. We've put it off at length, but Barbie and Oppenheimer, probably the most anticipated movies of 2023, just based on the hype and how different they are, but some similarities. Have you seen either one? Which one are you seeing first?
I have not seen them yet. I'm trying to do a double feature in one day. I'm going to try and get there this weekend. Last weekend, Beyonce was in Chicago, and we went to Beyonce, and that really took up a lot of my weekend. But I am attempting to do the Barbenheimer. I'm going to do a little Barbie first, take a break, eat some food, have a couple beers, and then jump into the Oppenheimer, into the gauntlet. But I've heard so far both are phenomenal. I love both directors. Christopher Nolan, obviously, of Inception fame, Dark Knight Rises. Greta Gerwig is also a phenomenal director as well. She's done Lady Bird. She's done Little Women. She's an absolutely terrific director. So I love them both. I love the cast of both movies. And I can't wait to see them. I did see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. That's the name of the movie. Got that right. And Tom Cruise is just a complete psychopath. I don't know how he's still doing that. He's 60-something years old. He looks like he's 42. He's jumping off of buildings. He jumps off a motorcycle and flies in the air. It's the most fun I've had in movie theater this year so far. I know Oppenheimer is a 3-hour. I can actually listen. I can hold. I do a pretty good job. I can't do like a light beer, but I could do like an IPA and still hold on to it for 3 hours.
Just bring a little flask in, a little taste.
Yeah.
When the explosion goes off, like here we go. Let's fucking get it. That's what I hear about Oppenheimer, and obviously, like they very different just in style. And Barbie obviously is not going to be a 3-hour epic, and what Christopher Nolan is to directing is really incredible. But Barbie, as far as the numbers go, had a great opening weekend, like the best of 2023, which is great for Greta Gerwig and company. And we know Margot Robbie was just made to be played Barbie, and Ryan Gosling is a very good Ken. That's a incredible cast, and then not to be outdone is Oppenheimer, and very different, but both will be very entertaining. That I got no doubt. It's tough for a lot of people to do 3-hour movies, and then sort of how it's going to end with this massive explosion too. Not to ruin anything for people, but
spoiler alert, it works.
Yeah, fucking A, it does. And the sound design that goes into his films. If you're a Christopher Nolan fan with the Dark Knight franchises and Inception, all those movies that you mentioned. But Barbie, man, I'm very excited to see that as well. So
it's got Will Ferrell in it. It's got a bunch of star cameos and stuff like that. So it just sucks, obviously with the actors strike right now, that they're not able to continue to promote these movies. I, for one, stand in solidarity with them. Pay writers, pay actors, pay people who deliver art to you on a consistent basis and a high level. But even Mission Impossible was 3 hours long, and I had a nice ice cold beer with that and some popcorn as well. So these movies are consistently like in the 2.5, close to 3 hours range, especially when you throw in the previews. These are just really long movies at this point.
They really are. And, you figure it's taken a hit since the pandemic of people going to the movie theaters. They want more bang for the buck, like leave nothing on the cutting floor. Just put it all out there.
Right.
Put your best shit out there. Thanks to everybody for watching on YouTube with us and commenting. And don't forget, if you've missed any of this show, it will be up very soon on Spotify, iTunes, if you want the audio only version, or you can rewatch everything on YouTube. Like, subscribe, tell a friend or two. Follow Ross on Twitter at Ross Reed, and follow me at The Real Evan Mack. Everybody be good to each other out there. We appreciate the love. But for now, we say deuces. So long, everybody.